Yeah, the interest rate environment is certainly different now than it was at the end of, say, 2022, 2023. Their rates are starting to come down here. You're starting to see, a fair amount of layoffs, some of it due to AI, Amazon, UPS, some of the more recent ones.
And welcome into your game plan for retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource for a common sense approach to planning for your financial, investment, and retirement future. He is president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services, Chris McIntire. Chris, always a pleasure to have you. And you wanted to get started with a tip of the week.
Sure thing, Peter. Good to be with you. Tip of the week is knowing your retirement number, right? So people say, well, what number are you talking about? The lump sum that we need to retire on, or the money that we is in our checking account? What are we talking about? We're talking about, your income versus your expenses. What's that number that you're short, or if you're blessed, you have a surplus. Most people have a shortfall, and we help people, find how do we solve for that number? How do we create that number? And you algebra people would be very happy. We know how to solve for the unknown here.
Chris, at McIntire Retirement Services, a big part of the initial process as you are bringing on new clients is to help them define that number, to really make sure that we have a very close approximation of what the spending and expenses are going to be, and then mapping out how to cover and generate the income that is needed.
Yep, part of that is helping people determine when's the best time to take their Social Security. If they have a pension, what's the best option to do with that pension? What are the investments that we can use to create the income? What are investments we can use to create growth? What are investments we can use to create peace of mind even? A lot of people like to have some safe money as well in retirement, and that certainly makes sense. And, that's what we do. We adhere to the fiduciary standard, work with some wonderful money management platforms that we have at our resources, and happy to share those with you.
Fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to get together your game plan for retirement and really drill down, define your retirement number, whatever that may be for you, and that's different than your brother or sister or neighbor or coworker. It is your number. And if you'd like to define that and get a plan for how to address that retirement number that you're going to need to generate month in, month out, year after year over the decades of retirement, and then include the variables, inflation, taxation, market volatility. That's what getting your game plan for retirement is all about. And you can start that process or double check your current plan. Give Chris McIntire and McIntire Retirement Services a call, 419-332-0532, 419-332-0532. 0532 419-332-0532. That's your financial tip of the week to start the show here on Your Game Plan for Retirement. We appreciate it, Chris. Now, how's life? How are things going in Chris and Robin's world?
Well, it's always exciting. I will say that. We've been working with my mom's been in a nursing home here, and so that's kind of occupied a fair amount of our time, and settling Robin's dad's estate as he passed away. And you certainly learn a lot of things. Even though we do so much of this, a couple of examples is Robin's dad thought he had the payable on death on his bank account. He did not. Same thing with the car title, didn't have it where it would transfer. So some of those, little pain in the neck things that are time consuming, they don't seem like major things, but when you get 7 or 8 of them, in addition to everything else. And so trying to help people avoid all of those hassles and headaches, and, and ourselves, even personally, hey, we bought some new vehicles and things like that. And it's like, all right, we need to make sure our estate plan is up to date, because, it lands in your lap usually in time of a crisis when, there's, it might be involving hospitals, ambulances, funerals, all of those things. So, man, having that done ahead of time sure takes a lot of stress off the people who have to come in and help, let's say clean up the details, if you will.
Yeah. Well, not only do you help clients make sure their affairs are in order, but Chris, you're in the midst of it. You see it personally firsthand. But I think the difference is that working with an experienced, qualified professional, not only may they have seen it firsthand, the things that we need to be doing for ourselves, but they've seen it time and time again. Not exclusively from a first person perspective, but from many, many different perspectives, and helping people to identify what has worked for others, what has been a hang up for others. Chris, I think is the value in working with an advisor, someone experienced, qualified, professional. And again, ladies and gentlemen, that is why Chris McIntire has helped so many proactive savers and investors throughout Northwestern Ohio. And so many more need that kind of guidance so that the small things don't hang you up and the big things don't completely derail you. So again, that's your game plan for retirement. It is a complimentary courtesy service offered there at McIntire Retirement Services to take advantage. 419-332-0532. 419-332-0532. And then the rest of the team, Heidi, Ross, everybody getting along and staying busy there, helping people make sure they're meeting those retirement goals at the office, Chris?
Yep, absolutely. And don't forget Robin. That's an important one as well. And yep,
Yep.
she work does a lot of the admin work at home and whatnot. And so yep, we're rocking and rolling for sure. And as we head into the busy part of the season here, as far as required minimum distributions, some Roth conversions, making sure people have covered their taxes and all that. You and I being self-employed, we just recently met with our accountant to make sure, hey, here's where our books show we are for the year. Have we paid enough taxes, or do we need to make an additional payment or whatnot? So we actually got good news. So thankfully, we sometimes we overpay to get ahead of it when the resources are there, and that was nice. And but it is yeah. So it's nice to have that. It's depressing to know how much you've paid in taxes, but it's nice to know that that we've checked that box well ahead of time.
Yeah. Well, Chris, appropriate segue here is that the theme of the program today, year-end planning. Finish strong, start smart. That's really what it's all about. We want a good finish to this year. We want a good launch for next year. We want things to continue on the right track. And here we are in the final stretch of 2025. Now is the time to start those year-end planning items.
Yeah, we got through September and October unscathed, which are historically very volatile months. And so now might be a good time to do an annual review to see how you've been doing. We're certainly running through that with our clientele. We're still doing some Roth conversions. We basically have about another month to go there. And understanding under the one big beautiful bill, how did that affect somebody who's 65? Okay, for example, they got an additional $6,000 on their standard deduction. So if you're married, that's another $12,000. That means you can pull another $12,000 out of your IRA and not affect your income taxes. That's what we mean by the Roth conversion pieces, and under the one big beautiful bill. And lots of things like that. It's kind of, we're doing a lot of housekeeping. It's probably
Sure.
good analogy, Peter.
Yeah, well, as the holidays approach and engulf us, it is easy for priorities to sort of get lost in the shuffle, so to speak, Chris. So maybe make it a priority along with those holiday plans to schedule an annual financial review where you can talk about those kind of items, right, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. And if we do that for our current clientele, we do that for a lot of folks that come to our educational events. We get some folks obviously from the radio show that say, "Hey, I like the message that you were saying. I want to see how this applies to myself or myself and my spouse, or is there things I can be doing to help my family out? What are some of the legacy pieces you can do?" And it's like anything. Your whole plan is as strong as the weakest link. And we say that in society and everything. We're only as good as the weakest link on the chain. And so we want to help strengthen that chain, find that weak link, and replace it with one that's even stronger. And in a lot of cases right now, with our experience here over the last 12 months with my father-in-law going into a nursing home, my mom inside a nursing home, is just how much goes into that from the administrative side that the family's got to do. And
Yeah.
it's almost another full-time job, to be honest with you, here until you get them all through the process and whatnot, because it can be spend down if you're applying for Medicaid. If not, you're paying $10,000 a month or whatever the number is there between full skilled care versus assisted living, and dealing with Medicare that says, okay, we're done paying for your rehab. You got to be out of the rehab facility in 2 days. All right. Well, nursing homes are full, so sometimes you got to move them from one facility and find another one. And like in our case, that's kind of what we're working on right now with my mom. We don't want her to leave where she's at, but they don't always have room from the rehab center when you come out of the hospital into the long-term care side.
That's why, Chris, I think people who have been through it, seen it firsthand within their own family, take this conversation and planning and preparing for it much more seriously. But unfortunately, it's something that we all need to take much more seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it breaks my heart that my mother's in a nursing home and, my father-in-law was in a nursing home. But, when they can't, get up out of a chair, and go use the restroom, how's my 92-year-old dad supposed to be able to take care of her? And,
Mm.
not everybody can afford 24/7 care at home. I mean, that's very expensive. And, just how you do all of that, it's just a reality of life as people get elderly and can care for themselves less and less. And, I talk to all kinds of clients that say, well, I'd never let my parents go into a nursing home or whatnot. I'm like, you know, until that situation lands in your lap, what do you do?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that everybody would love the idea of remaining comfortable in our own home, aging in place, and then family stepping in. But there's just not always that capacity. There's not always that ability. There are certain levels of care that are required that our family does not have the qualifications to provide for us. And so again, Chris, I mean, this is just one aspect, but this is such an important point, I think, that emphasizes the need for planning and the need for that annual review. And it's sometimes not just talking about your situation. I know as you're talking with your clients and families, you are prompting and asking and probing to find out more about their families. Are they going to be in a situation where they are going to foresee themselves providing care for parents, or are they having conversations with their children about what their plans and desires and wishes are for aging and care themselves? So again, these are just why it's so important that your plan stays up to date, to get a clear picture of where life stands, to make sure that the dollars and the investments are still relevant and aligned and optimized, and it identifies gaps and reduces risks to have regular reviews and checkups of that plan, Chris, being proactive with our planning.
Absolutely. And, and knowing what the options you have and, what do some of these options cost and what could the savings be? And, I'll give you a quick example. So, if you're in a rehab facility or a skilled facility and you go into the hospital, okay, they can, if you don't reserve that bed at the facility, they can fill it with somebody else. And now you got to go through that whole process again. And,
Mm.
so, my mom, had happened to her. She went back in the hospital for 3 days and it was $400 a day. So my dad paid $1,200 to hang on to that room.
Wow. Again, why it is so important to have these conversations, understand these costs, these implications, all of the details that go into planning that we probably don't think about unless we have dealt with it firsthand, but that we need to be prepared for in case we experience it firsthand, certainly. So again, give Chris McIntire a call and do that annual review, ladies and gentlemen. Talk about the high level 30,000-foot view, finding your retirement number, but then really getting into the details of the risks, issues, and opportunities that you have. 419-332-0532. 419-332-0532. Chris, you mentioned the Roth conversions, but tax loss harvesting, those RMDs, those QCDs, charitable giving, all of these things, the contributions to our 401ks, they have year-end deadlines. We don't have that much time left. I don't know about you, Chris. This year has just flown by. And I imagine we blink and turn around and it's the end of the year. So again, get started now on those items.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt there. And it is amazing how fast the time goes. And, it's getting dark so early now as well. And, I think we're all looking forward to December 21st when it starts going the other direction. But that takes a while, obviously. And, here we're, what kind of winter are we going to have? And we need some rain up here up in the north. We're in an extreme drought conditions up here. So hopefully we get some snow over the winter. But you're right, Peter. Things happen quickly between now and Christmas holiday. We're having clients say, look, we're just jammed until Thanksgiving. And for us, we deal with a lot of snowbirds that are getting ready to head south for the winter. Those that are smart enough to say, I don't want to be in Ohio in the winter. Go down and see some palm trees or sand, and whether that's Florida, South Carolina, Arizona, whatever your choice is. I get a lot of that. We do some trips as well just to, get out of the gray skies, and it helps your mental, you get sunshine, and that seasonal affective disorder certainly rings true up here in the north.
Well, and just a reminder there, it is that time of year where we set the clocks even further. It'll start getting dark even sooner, Chris, even earlier. So, yeah, it's just, it is, the days are shorter now, and the year's going to go by quick. So get that annual review covered. Make sure you're taking care, especially of those things with deadlines, ladies and gentlemen. Tax loss harvesting, Roth conversions, contributions to your employer sponsored plan, your 401k, RMDs, those things must be done completed before the end of the year. So now is the time to get a jump and start on those. The penalty for missing a required minimum distribution, Chris, that is a 25% penalty. And you can potentially ask for forgiveness and get that down to 10, but still, we don't want to pay any extra in taxes and penalties, certainly. So the requirement now, Chris, is if you turn 73 this year, you need to go ahead and get it done. You could take two next year if you just turn 73, but why would you want to put 2 years worth of taxable income into one, right?
Yeah, yeah. For not most of the folks here, obviously, there's always a couple of exceptions. But for most of you that have turned 73 this year, take that required minimum distribution. A lot of people will do it systematically, so it happens every year at the same time. For us, a lot of folks take it annually later on in the year like this, and some of them will do a qualified charitable distribution. So if their required minimum distribution is $10,000, they may say, hey, I'm going to pay $2,000 to a charity, or whatever. It could even be up to 100. I think it's $108,000. I think they've adjusted it that you could take from your IRA and pay directly to a charity. But for most folks, the qualified charitable distribution helps satisfy the required minimum distribution. It's not taxable to you. It's not taxable to the charity, and a great way to be giving, I guess.
And if you have not heard about these kind of strategies, ladies and gentlemen, then you could be missing opportunities, because this is one of the best opportunities in the tax code for truly tax-free money. We don't have many of those opportunities, truly tax-free money. And if you haven't heard of this, if you are not being coached on how to properly execute this, then give Chris McIntire and McIntire Retirement Services a call, because we don't want to miss those kind of opportunities. 419-332-0532. 419-332-0532. Chris, this time of year, in order to finish strong and start smart, also a good idea to go ahead and rebalance that portfolio, as well as check and make sure we are getting the best rates on our fixed income and interest bearing kind of investments.
Yeah, the interest rate environment's certainly different now than it was at the end of, say, 2022, 2023. The rates are starting to come down here. You're starting to see, a fair amount of layoffs, some of it due to AI, Amazon, UPS, some of the more recent ones, with some significant job reduction. So part of that is due to artificial intelligence being able to replace some of that work. And again, some of them are just going through and, becoming more efficient. They're revisiting some of the systems they had in place and said, you take a company like Amazon, as big and as fast as they have grown. All right, they get everything in place. They say, you know what, we can come and trim, 15, 20,000 jobs here. That saves money, makes their stock more valuable. They make more profits on it, and then those folks have to go out and find another job someplace. So that's why we're seeing some of the interest rate. There's a little more pressure, making it more favorable to get further interest rate cuts so that other companies can borrow money to expand their practice, build on that type of thing. And obviously, this administration, we would say, is very business friendly, trying to bring business back. And President Trump was just recently over in Asia there and announced some significant trade agreements. So the tariff stuff is, kind of pushed back to the back burner, not the big headline driver right now, and some significant investments coming. So we would say that, all in all, the tax environment got more favorable. They passed the one big beautiful bill, no significant changes. And then, some of the new business-friendly legislature that's out there as well. And, maybe these knuckleheads will, finally reopen the government. People start getting paid here at some point in time, and might come sooner before the radio show actually gets heard, right?
We will see. We will see,
Yeah.
Chris. I'm not holding my breath. Had I been, I would have passed out long, long ago. But as we are talking about finishing the year strong, starting smart, you talked about the retirement number, Chris. This is a really good time. We talked about a plan review, an overall review, but an income plan review. So a lot of times we think about pensions and Social Security, sort of set it and forget it. But these things do change. There are updates to them. The interest rate environment is going to cause some changes, possibly with like that lump sum balance that we're being offered on one side of the pension. Social Security got the COLA adjustment. We also got the extra $6,000 per person adjustment. And then our own money that is generating income to fill the gap, we may need to reassess because rates are falling. So an income plan review, Chris, may be one of the most essential parts of that annual review. Sure, we want to also examine the investments and the rate of return that we've made this year, and hopefully, things stay the way they've been going. Been a great year, but the income plan review might be the essential stability and foundation that our confidence rests upon.
Yeah, and I mean, we build income plans all the time. So, it's nothing for me to not have, 4 to 6 review appointments in a week where we're looking at, all right, how much dividends and interest did we generate from the portfolio? If we had an annuity, how much income paid out of the annuity? Did the income go up? If it's got some method for an increasing income, and, just all of those pieces, NVIDIA is not a stock that we use for income. It's a stock that you use for growth, right? So, Verizon would be an example of a company you would use for a dividend. They pay a heck of a lot more of a dividend than what NVIDIA is going to do, right? Did you make more money on NVIDIA than Verizon this year? Yes. But what happens when NVIDIA stock potentially drops, significantly? Verizon stock can drop, but as long as that dividend is guaranteed, your income doesn't change. That's the methodology there.
Yep. And then where there's income, there's also spending. So a budget review, Chris. And I know we'll turn around and we will be setting New Year's resolutions very soon. Perhaps we should set those resolutions before the holiday season and say, let's make sure we stick to our budget and not overspend during the holidays.
Yep, absolutely. And, we've had quite a few people retire here just recently. And, the timing of their Social Security benefits is very important as well. A couple of meetings here this week where we said, all right, let's start your Social Security in 2026, for example, because you've had a lot of income in 2025. So let's wait until 2026, turn on Social Security. We can throttle back some of the income on your investments, take some pressure off of that. Just a number of different, ways to get to that budget number with all the peace of mind and everything that you have out there. And outside of the geopolitical world, there's really no, ongoing crisis going on right now, but you never know what's lurking underneath the covers. So despite what happens in the stock market, for example, we still don't want to deviate from, having an alternative or a nice safe money strategy. So, when the markets don't do what we want them to do, like in the month of April, for example, I mean, it was a pretty soft start to the year here, all in all, in 2025, basically from November of last year through basically April the 8th, when Liberation Day, we were kind of at the bottom. I think we were down someplace in that 17% range. So, at any time in any given year, the average correction of the S&P 500 in any given year is 15%. Most people get so conditioned that, well, it should always go up, it should always go. It does not.
Hmm. Hmm. But a jolt like that, even though that is within the range of the average year can scare a lot of people, Chris.
Oh yeah, I get, and what I did with our some of our personal money is that was outside of an IRA account was in the month of April. I sold some things that had some significant losses to them, and I had to wait 31 days and I rebought them. So now I got some capital losses to offset capital gains down the road. So, there's always an opportunity for most folks listening to the show today. That would have been maybe a Roth conversion when the market was down 20% because you converted over and maybe now it's already grown back to where it would have been.
Yep. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the end of the year rapidly approaching. What are the strategic things that you should be doing in order to finish strong and start smart? And SMART, Chris, is an acronym: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. These are the ways that we should set goals. We should make sure that they are specific goals, that they are measurable goals, that they are achievable and attainable, that they are realistic, and that they are timely. And one SMART goal, Chris, is to evaluate alternatives. And I know that you have access to and you utilize some investment tools that not everybody has had a lot of exposure to or a lot of knowledge of. And these may be tools that are appropriate and in fact can be measurably beneficial to somebody's results and achieving their goals. And you've regularly talked about the use of annuities inside of an income generation portfolio, but you've also talked about dividend stocks. You've talked about structured notes. You've talked about defined outcome ETFs. These are not necessarily just the rank and file mutual funds that are in our 401ks.
Yeah, you're correct. Most of the folks listening to the show today have heard of the 60-40 portfolio, which is 60% stocks, 40% bonds. In today's world, we certainly, divide that up even more, in the correct risk profile that we've made an assertion on with the specific client we're dealing with, So, it might be 60%, stocks, and of that 60% of those stocks, how many of them are dividend payers? How many of them are growth stocks? That type of thing. And then on the 40% side, are we using structured notes instead of just corporate bonds, for example? Are we using an annuity in there? So it could be 60% very different types of stocks to help diversify that. And then the 40% portfolio might be 10, 10, 10, 10, and essentially, so a lot of different asset classes that your average person who's been putting money in some 401k mutual funds may not have ever heard of, but would certainly, be worthy of them, understanding, hey, okay, yeah, I see this stuff makes a heck of a lot of sense as I'm going into my retirement.
Yeah, it's all about information, education, and evaluation, ladies and gentlemen, and understanding the options that are out there. There are a lot that can help you have better certainty of your outcome, have a better capability of predicting the range of potential outcomes where you can finish. So again, if you would like to finish the year strong, start off on the right foot, start smart, now is the time to do that year-end planning. It's all about these steps, reviewing your portfolio from a perspective of the investments, of the income, of the taxes, to help you enter the new year with greater confidence, clarity, and control, understanding the options that are out there, review, rebalance, reset, use the year-end deadlines to your advantage. Don't wait till December 31st. Go ahead and get a jump on those things now. And as always, Chris McIntire makes one big offer to help you in that effort, and that is to get together, to do that review with you, and to help you put together to put that together along with you, to structure your game plan for retirement, a personalized plan with your goals in mind, a long-term vision and outlook, diversified strategies to help you get there. That is your game plan for retirement, looking at income, investments, taxes, healthcare, legacy. If you would like to take advantage of that offer, of the valuable opportunity to get your game plan for retirement, call McIntire Retirement Services now. 419-332-0532. 419-332-0532. You can also visit online, McIntireRetirement.com, McIntire Retirement Services, McIntireRetirementServices.com. Chris, we always appreciate your time and making the information and the resources available.
Hey, my pleasure, buddy. Good to be with you. Thanks for listening to the show, everybody, and have a great weekend out there, and God bless America.
Tune into Chris McIntire's full radio program and visit McIntireRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.